Well, let's get started. My name is Sharad Agarwal. I'm the Chief Metaverse Officer of CyberGear, based right here in Dubai. I run a Web3 digital agency, and I do these webinars like almost every 3 weeks, and we cover topics in the Web3, Metaverse, tokenization, DAOs, and community building aspects. So today we have an amazing panel. Actually, I should say as usual. We have Gordon Glenister, who's coming in from the UK. We have Stephanie Bretonnoir, who's based in Paris, but today from Milan. Jennifer Roebuck is from UK. Carlos Diaz coming all the way from San Francisco, and a special shout out to him for his commitment for checking in at 5 a.m. local time. Carlos, welcome to the show. And Nico, who's joining us from New York. So we have an amazing panel, and our topic is also very interesting and very relevant for present times: the emergence of fansumers in Web3. And why I selected this topic? Because Web2 is about consumers and Web3 is about fansumers. You need to build fans for your brand, people who are loyal, people who are your brand ambassadors, people who talk about you even when you are sleeping, right? So that's the whole idea. And community is at the heart of Web3. So let's get started. And let's do the introductions. We'll go around the room. As I see my panelists, we'll start with Gordon.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Lovely to see you. I'm from Cambridge in the UK. So I'm an influencer marketing speaker, author of Influencer Marketing Strategy. In fact, you can see the book neatly placed behind me. I also host 2 podcasts, one in the membership community space and the other called Influence the Global Podcast. But rather excitingly, in the next couple of months, I'm going to be launching an exclusive influencer related podcast for the Arabian market as well, which I'm really excited about. And I'm also a writer for a London newspaper, the London Evening Standard. So that's me.
Thanks. Let's go to Jennifer, please.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm also based in London, and I'm actually a consumer expert. So I've spent the past 25 years in fashion, hospitality, entertainment, and actually retail banking and telco. And my red thread is basically building up customer bases, retaining customers, creating really immersive creative experiences. And I segued into Web3 about 1.5 years ago, and I actually bridged the 2 worlds, so the traditional brand and consumer world with Web3.
Thanks, Jennifer. Stephanie, you're in Milan today.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Very pleased to be with you today. So currently in Milan because I'm attending a luxury and fashion summit tomorrow. So my background, 25 years in the luxury and fashion and beauty space, starting in Web2, launching my first e-commerce website for Dior in 2002. So quite some time in the space, and I've shifted into Web3 3 years ago now. I'm founder and CEO of Power3 and as well CEO of WeImpact.world. And my mission is to leverage Web3 technology for impact.
Thanks, Stephanie. Let's go to New York and talk to Nico.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nico Farah. I have 2 organizations. I'm an engineer by training, but I found my way into immersive experiences and fashion. So I founded the Fashion DAO, which is a community of Web3 fashion experts and enthusiasts. We help brands, gaming companies, and even metaverse companies to bring different ways of expressions into these immersive experiences that we are working towards. And I also founded another company, which is called Chief Metaverse Officer. It's not a title, it's the name of the company. And we allow brands to create their own custom immersive experiences on their own website. Thank you.
Thanks, Nico. And talk to us about the fancy background that you have.
Yes, this is one of our environments to create it for a virtual fashion show we're going to do.
All right, cool. Carlos, how is it in San Francisco?
Well, it's still the night here. I mean, so it's 5 in the morning now, but I'm very pleased to be with you today. So my name is Carlos Diaz. I always been an entrepreneur in the tech space. I started well a long time ago in '97. I created a web agency back then that eventually became public in 2006. And then I founded the first software as a service player in France. I originally come from France, and moved this company to Silicon Valley in 2010. Sold the company here in the US. Decided to stay here. And then I created another company in the mobile and gaming space that didn't go as expected. So I think I got a pretty good experience of what it is to be an entrepreneur in the tech space, with IPO, M&A, and failures. So I visited, the three bases of the diamond, if I would say. And after this third experience, I decided I don't want to create a startup anymore. So I basically going to become an investor, and in the last 4 or 5 years, I invested in more than 95 startups as a pretty active, business angel with my own fund named Diaspora Venture. And then the Web3, took me, and I said to myself, I've been in the Web1, I've been in the Web2 doing amazing stuff. And here is this new paradigm, coming, very exciting one. And I want to surf, this wave. That might be my last maverick, for me to surf. And I jump on this new adventure, and I founded Uncut, that is a platform for creators to create NFT gated communities with their top fans. That's basically what we're doing.
Great, Carlos. And what I share with you is that I'm also a Web1 guy, 27 years in digital space, and transitioning to Web3 now. And every day we learn something new. And the great thing is that there are no experts in this field, right? And if anybody claims to be one, you should view them,
Run.
Your own way. Yeah. So we are all here to learn from each other. Let's start this conversation. If I may go to Nico, Web3 is about communities, right? Communities are at the heart of Web3, and brands somehow still don't get it. They are looking to build in the metaverse, and then when they have no traffic, no traction, they think, oh my God, what happened? And it's simple. They didn't start by building a community around their brand. So if I may come to you, Nico, what is the role of communities and, let's say, DAO structures, and how can brands, engage with their customers? What's your take on what brands need to be doing today?
Sure. I start with the definition because, DAOs can be confusing. So it's decentralized autonomous organization, but decentralization doesn't always mean like a flat organization. And also autonomous doesn't mean like everything is going to be autonomous. So we need to look at it as a spectrum, and especially we see from the brand's perspective, a lot of times, even when they use blockchain, they prefer to use like centralized blockchain just to get into the space. So again, it's a spectrum. So you can have different tiers like we do have in the Fashion DAO. And then in different tiers, you can kind of define the control and the power structure and all of that. And what this does is that you're still providing ownership to your customers and turn them to users and creators, and then allowing them to be part of the narrative. And that ownership fuels their empowerment, and then they feel they're part of the outcome. And then the other part is like brands should look at it as an extension of their team. So a lot of times they can utilize the knowledge base, the experiences, the feedback, and have a two-way communication rather than just, what we're used to, like just likes in Instagram or, emails and, like complaints. That's not the true communication that we had in Web1, Web2. So this is the best way. And, again, brands don't have to think like they have to like ruin their structure and go all decentralized. Like they can take small steps by, simply listening. And, like when you are doing product development, you can start with like creating some options and sharing it with your customers. That's a surprise factor that we saw like from Steve Jobs and a lot of, strong entrepreneurs before may not work as much these days. And it's not the most efficient way of product development, you can get feedback before you actually produce something. It's a lot more sustainable. It's a lot more efficient. I see that all the time, like when newer brands are doing it, they're using existing tools like Twitter, Discord. Like, if I know many of them could be very noisy, but it's really up to you how you control it. You don't have to have 20 channels. You can start with one and like manage that. But all these consumers want is just to be heard and to be seen and to be valued. And this has been lacking before. So now we're giving them that attention, and it could be small steps.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And you made a very important point that brand managers have to be good listeners. A lot of community managers I see, they talk, they don't listen. And all the good ideas are coming from the community around us, right? So we have to listen to all stakeholders. And there are a lot of learnings there. I saw Jennifer take some notes. You want to add something to that?
Sure. I mean, I think it also depends on the brand, right? So one of the things I noticed yesterday was LinkedIn piling into Porsche's failing NFT project. And it's a really good example of, I think Web3 being, critical and unsupportive of brands. And I think that that's a challenge for brands, but also the type of brand, the type of community, what is the existing customer base interested in? And are some of these businesses, perhaps jumping in too soon? Yes, they need to build a community, but is it even right for them to build a community? And I think that's been a really valuable development over the past year and a half, when we went from hype mode where this tech would solve all the problems, right, that everyone had, and decentralization was this glorious myth that we could all live and breathe, to first principles, like you have to run a business, you have to make money, you have to solve problems for people, or you have to create things that surprise them. And this technology can be used to facilitate that, but it doesn't replace the first principles. So I think that's important from a community perspective.
Yeah, Gordon, you have your hand raised.
Sharon, I just wanted to make a point of a very good example of a brand that really has embraced community, and that's Lego. I mean, if you consider a few years ago, this would have been a brand that really didn't know and understand its audience. And now, whether it's the film, whether it's the TV show, with your average age of the people that are in that community are in their mid-30s and 40s. You've got the equivalent of Bake Off, only Lego off. But what we've got really well is this co-creation of people that love the product, all working together for a greater good.
Yes, agreed, 100%. Stephanie?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And what is really important is to understand why brands need to go to what is called fanocracy. I think it's very important to start with the why. First of all, it's because we see a strong evolution of the expectation of the customers. They want to be part of it, and they want to belong to the tribe. And that's the reason why I prefer the word tribe rather than community, because usually we associate community only to consumer, when in my point of view, every brand should leverage and gather all the people within the circle of the brand, meaning not only the consumer, the followers, but also the employees, the partner, and build a tribe, because all those people can be converted into fans and be leveraged to be much more than what they are: consumer to purchase, employee to work. And if you twist them into a customer to be sales advisor, employee to become a social influencer, you leverage the concept of tribe. And they're exactly what you said before as an introduction, Sharat. You will get the support, and that's something which is very important, because we see the rise of the acquisition cost. So you need to optimize, the way you expand your brand, and we need to shift from a brand-centric approach to customer. So it goes from top to bottom up, which is totally new for many brands, because they want to keep control on everything, when right now they should share not only, the communication, but also revenues, and also, leverage collective intelligence and co-creation, as it has been mentioned. If we look at, I don't know if you know the framework RRRR, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenues, most of the brands are now are still focused on acquisition, where they should, you know, really leverage retention and referral. So it's very interesting because this is a total different way, I should say opposite way to run a brand right now.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for those insights, Steph. Carlos, you also run a successful podcast. What are you hearing from your audience?
No, I wanted to react to something that Nico said that I found very interesting is you mentioned a word that I think is very important, you know, right now is ownership. And that's a big difference, you know, that exists, you know, right now with this Web3 space where basically now you are owning, you know, something that you can share with your community. That was not the case before. Stephanie, you said that brands are focusing on acquisition. I've got a terrible news, you know, for them. They're not acquiring anything. So they think that they are making acquisition, but actually they're not owning anything. Actually, they are renting an audience from the platforms, and they don't own, you know, this audience. And there is also a terrible news, you know, for the consumers is the fact that even if they believe that they acquire or they own something, when you're interacting, you know, most of the time when you interact with a brand, you're not owning anything from this brand yourself, you know, as a consumer. And I think that the big difference, you know, we see, you know, right now with Web3 and DAOs and stuff like that, is that the first step is that people have decided to reclaim, you know, ownership over their content, over their community, and also over their economy. And so that's the very first step, you know, that every creator should take, you know, right now is to say, become an independent, you know, creator and reclaim ownership and control over your content, over your community and your economy. And once you have, you know, this ownership, then you can start sharing, you know, that, you know, with your community. And by the way, what is a community? You know, because a community, I think that what people have been doing, you know, so far in the recent years is just building audiences. That is very different. You know, I mean, it's they have millions of people, you know, listening to them. They barely, you know, interact, you know, with them on a regular basis. But what we're talking about here is not only about engaging a conversation. That's the Web 2, you know. This is about sharing, you know, some of what you're doing, you know, with your community and make them part really of, yes, become, for example, with my podcast, what I did is I started my new season of my podcast. But before starting, you know, the season of my podcast, I said to my audience and my community, I'm not going to start, you know, the next season because I want you to become the co-producer of my next season, okay, of my next podcast season. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mint, you know, 50 NFTs, unique NFTs, and they are all different. I call them socios. They range in between $100 and $500. And if you buy one of them, I'll share, you know, 25% of my revenue of the next season with you. So some of these tokens were 1% share, other was, you know, 0.3 or 0.1, you know, percent of my revenue. I sold these 50 tokens in 2 hours and 30 minutes to my community. And now every time I'm minting NFTs along the season, my smart contract is splitting, you know, 25% of this revenue among, you know, these 50 holders of my 50 socio tokens. So now my community, this community, these 50 holders of my socio tokens are much more than auditors, you know, or people I'm talking with. They are co-owners, you know, of my season. You know, they are stakeholders, and they're really part of it. You know, they feel like they own, you know, something, a piece of my podcast. So that's really, I think that's really the change, you know, and maybe it's hard, you know, to understand. So I understand also that brands might find, you know, difficult, you know, to say, okay, first, I don't own anything because I build audiences in these shitty platforms around, you know, that are stealing, you know, all my audience, you know, from me. And now I need to share, you know, some ownership, you know, with people. That's a big jump, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. Very interesting model. I'm going to replicate that if I can in my community. Nico has her hand raised, and then Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, to add to what Carlos said, I think what we see from brands is that they want to go to those metaverse for alls or like environments where they can get immediate exposure because they're looking for that immediate ROI to tell their higher level managers that, see, it works, you know. But in reality, like if you think of like long-term plan, like it doesn't work exactly like you said, Carlos. It's just they're basically just renting, or like they're going to places that it's not necessarily the existing target audience, like Gucci going to Roblox or Ralph Lauren going to Roblox. Like that's not what we would expect from them. Obviously, they're planning also for the newer generation to get used to luxury and all of that, but it's just a different brand image. And so that's why we always also suggest brands to create their own and bring their existing audience. But the challenge is education, which is a hard investment, and brands prefer to avoid it for now. And then I wanted to also add to what Stephanie said about this being exact opposite of what brands are used to. I kind of disagree in some ways, because it's opposite of the product development structure that they're used to a little bit, you know, like coming now from bottom up. But also we can't expect the audience or consumers to actually become accountable and organize anything. It's not as much as we wish. I experienced that by actually like going all the way decentralized, and it's not there yet. People are not ready to take accountability, to take responsibility, to take ownership of the outcome. They like to own assets, but when it gets to like the challenges of a business, they rather sit aside and just like expect us to perform great. So I would say a brand shouldn't be scared of like completely revolutionizing their structure yet. They can take small steps and just, you know, kind of see this audience as an extension of their team again. So if they tier the control and they kind of release slightly, I think the outcome would be great, and they don't have to completely, you know, change everything.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. We'll go to Steph and then Jennifer.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nico. It's the step towards sharing, and for sure they should not rely on, you know, their community to be accountable for the product development or everything. But it's just, you know, starting to share, and this is something very different. And what I see as well as an issue, or at least some that brings some complexity, especially in the luxury space, which are, you know, known, which is known actually to be the secret industry. They have to start to be very authentic, which they are not used to be. Because they are very secretive, and that's something that is quite a challenge for most of them, because you need, if you want to develop that sense of belonging and close tight, you need to make sure that people get the space, you know, to have the sentiment that they can, you know, contribute to the overall brand experience. And just to jump to what has been said before, I always, for me, what is really makes sense and creates a lot of engagement from the tribes is also when you bring impact, and when you leverage your community actually to help your organization to transform. Just an example for on something that has been done by Tod's. They launched a digital twin of shoes, and the community loved it so much that they finally developed the physical product. And that's very interesting, because thanks to, you know, all the concept of fansumer and fanocracy, we are going to see an evolution also on the way we produce. And instead of producing and then, you know, launching the product, you are going to define your forecast not based on assumption, but based on commitments and purchase, you know, prior to production. So on-demand production will also generate a lot of impact when it comes to environmental and sustainability transformation. And that's also something very interesting, because everyone can be and become, you know, part of the transformation of any organization.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. Let's go to Jennifer and then Gordon.
So, I mean, I'm also in agreement. I think one thing to add to this, and as I listen to Fanocracy, which I love, by the way, I think that's a really good way of articulating the difference between a group of individuals who are part of a journey versus a group of individuals who might own the journey. And I think the individuals that own the journey are the community. And I think the fans are the participants, right? And I think there's a really interesting distinction between those two. The one thing that's important, I suppose, for the audience, right, if you're listening to this and you're trying to understand, why would I bother building a community? You know, what's in it for me? I think different businesses have different objectives. There's one sort of fallacy, though, which is if you create a community, you therefore create a business. And that is just simply not true. I actually created a framework last week to articulate this for people in the CMO seat who probably are getting a lot of board level pressure, right? Why aren't you in the metaverse, right? Where are we going to invest? And more recently, it's AI is going to take over the world, right? So you're always on the receiving end of this as a CMO. And it's important to understand that you have community or even fanocracy to a point, but all that really is either product market fit or participation, but it doesn't equal scale. It doesn't equal commercial performance. And I think those are the things that people need to understand. How do you get from a community or a fan and take and give in order to get that scale and that value back?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Gordon, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to use a case study actually about a particular influencer. I'm going to talk about influencers because it's obviously my bag. About an influencer agency that got involved with a project where they were co-creating effectively a brand new product for a South American audience. And what they decided to do was bring 4 or 5 influencers for a 3 or 4 day retreat in a hotel. And what they did is that they asked the influencers to create this brand, which is it's called Puricane, which is effectively a sugar sweetener. And they wanted to do it with the influencers, but actually with the influencers' audiences at the same time. So that's everything from looking at the design, looking at the different color, the market. So what was happening during these 3 days is these audiences of the influencers were very, very much involved in giving their feedback. So it was almost like Q&A. What do you think of this? So we're doing lots of content. So when the product actually came to be launched, can you imagine the impact that came from it? Because all of these influencers' audiences felt that they were part of this really exciting journey and experiment. And it was a huge success for this particular company, so much so that he bought the agency that actually did it for them.
Interesting. Yeah, I just want to switch the conversation a little bit to, one of the talking points, at least something that I've been promoting a lot, is the concept of ROE vis-a-vis ROI, right? Return on engagement. I think that's a very important metrics that brand managers need to be talking about and promoting within an organization. Because when you talk to a finance head, and you go to him with a metaverse proposal, his question is, what is the ROI? And I think that's a little bit of an unfair question. It probably says that you don't get it, because the first step is to have ROE. And I think brands need to invest in that return on engagement. And I can see a lot of hands going up. I don't know who I should go to first, but I think Jennifer was first to raise her hand. So let's go to you.
Okay. I mean, a quick build on that. So one of the things that comes up a lot in organizations where they want to experiment with innovation, they measure it completely differently, right? So first of all, you need separate KPIs, and ROE could be part of that. But one of the things that should be discussed is that an NPV of 0 is good. So break even is good. And that could be the same as ROE, because the insights, the learning curve that you get creates so much value that's frankly part of the reason why you're doing it.
Yes, 100% agree. Carlos, you want to add to that?
Yeah, another concept I think it's very important to understand, right now is I think we are moving from an attention economy, where basically it was about building audiences and having some attention and maybe some engagement through these content you're putting out there and the story you're telling the world, to what I call an intention economy, where it's very different. And the intention economy for me is not only about people listening to you or reacting to what you're saying, but really building a community of people that are ready to take action, for you. That's what I call the intention economy. The intention economy, and that's why you need to build a community where basically, but a community not just to chat, or talk, or to validate the attention, with you, but a real economy where you give them tools where they can really take action. And the people, right now are going to take action if there is a deal, it's because I think that talking about the attention economy, everybody knows that everything is fake, right now. I mean, you can easily buy, likes, even comments or reviews, on a product. If you work a little bit, with growth hackers, that this is totally actionable. And there is a ton of people. Go to Upwork. You can recruit a growth hacker and you can organize, this kind of attention. The attention doesn't mean anything anymore because this is something you can buy, right now. And everybody know that this attention is something you can buy. The intention is very different. The 50 people who put, $500, in my next season, this is not something you can buy. It's a real intention. There is, and by the way, I'm not talking about millions of people. I'm talking just about 50, people from my community that really said something that they want to take action and they put money on the table, their money. And what is fascinating for me, right now with Web3, let's take a moment, to think about that. We have people out there that are giving you money so you market them, correctly. That's basically what's going on. They are buying an NFT or a token, from you, whatever, and they are telling you, I want to take action, with you. I'm contributing, to what you're doing. This is my money. This is my email. This is my wallet address. Please market me correctly. This never happened, before.
Yes, Carlos, when you were saying this, I was smiling because in Web 1 and Web 2, at least on social media and Google, we used to use a lot of black hat tactics, right?
Yeah.
And those don't work anymore in Web3 and should not. So I think that's a stark difference between buying likes and shares, etc., to having genuine engagement and empowering people, so to say. Stephanie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, super. That's I'm just next. I just talked right after Carlos because perfect, connection. Just to jump on what you just say, Sharad, about ROI, ROE, I will bring another layer, which is ROI, but not return on investment, but return on impact. And impact could be many things: growth, consumer satisfaction, employee engagement. And that is something that is absolutely critical right now. And just to jump about what Carlos said, I developed a framework which is called impact hacking, HACKING. And it's not anymore, we see a lot of, and just to follow what Carlos just said, we are in a society right now where a lot of people talk a lot, and even on Web3 project, they are talking a lot. It's more, surfing on the hype and just be, cool brand. So they talk a lot, they do a little, and they prove nothing. But thanks to Web3 and especially blockchain, this time is over, and people are really fed up about the fact that all those data are manipulated, and they want, which is something we haven't touched yet, it's trust. And I think that it's really important to build for your tribe, your community, no matter how we call it, but it's important to develop a strong culture and strong identity, and people will, you will become a magnetic brand as soon as you are able to define that clearly, and people will, love your products. But they will also love your values and your culture and this identity. And that is really important. So we should shift from a model where we talk a lot, we do little, and we prove nothing, to a model where we do first, we prove, and then we talk. And this is the way you are able to bring trust and to create this notion of tribe. So it's time for action.
Thanks. I'm going to come to Nico very soon, but first to Gordon. Gordon, I remember last time we were on a Zoom call, you were explaining to me the concept of nano influencers. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so nano influencers are typically those that have got audiences between 1 and 10,000 followers. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it into this conversation is because their level of engagement on social media as a percentage is significantly higher, because they're in a position to be able to be much more responsive to their audience. In fact, I've just done a webinar the other day with the state of influencer marketing, some of the trends. You know, on average, Instagram is around 1.6% overall, and yet a nano influencer is likely to be at 2.53%. And if we move towards consumers, those real fan consumers is even higher. Because people, it is all about trust. It's all about relatability, you know, and that's why some of these nano influencers have done really, really so well, because they've created a niche, and in some cases, a niche and a super niche. And that is where we feel like, and this is really, really important for brands. I was talking about somebody that may be a fly fishing expert, for example, you know, may only have 1,000 followers on Instagram, but actually for a rod manufacturer or somebody in that space, the chances of getting a conversion and a sale is very, very high from that audience, because it's a small community. So I think what we, you know, when we talk about Web3, it's not necessarily about, you know, big size, it's about relevance and that feeling. I mean, look, I don't know about you guys, but some of the best meetings I've had in the last 2 or 3 years have been on Zoom with less than 12 people in them. Yeah, would you agree?
Yes.
And that, I think, is really, really important. And I think also when we've got these tighter communities, they've got these trusted networks, and that is the reason why brands find nano influencers a great way to build their communities.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. Before I go to Stephanie, something you will all agree has caught the imagination of all people. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm going to ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. What role does that have to play with community building for brands? Do you see any role for that? Is it going to take over community management? Is it going to outsmart community managers? I want to hear your take, 2 minutes each around the room, please. Starting with Stephanie.
So just before answering your point, Sharad, and following the point that Gordon raised, I think that, you know, leveraging nano influencers and implementing X to earn model, business model, sharing revenues, it's going to be a game changer in the way that brands can leverage, you know, those influencers, and they will be able actually to own this audience, because that's a problem. If, you know, Instagram shut down or disconnects, you lose everything. So leveraging those models and sharing revenues with them, thanks to contribute to earn, or one example is, for example, Stepan, their tokenization model was wrong, but the system was amazing. And I think that is a great way to convert an audience to a real consumer or fansumer. So just to jump on your question regarding AI, there is something that we should not forget. It's all about humans. So technology is great, but to build a tribe, you need to rehumanize. And we see that with CRM, for example. Most of the brands have a terrible, you know, CRM system. They don't know, and they assume that based on persona, people will react this way. So leveraging AI will be tremendous in many ways, but we should not forget that we talk to people. And so human and rehumanization of the relationship is absolutely, for me, critical to have the cement, to build a strong relationship with your audience. So great for many ways, for accelerating the process and developing, the overall community. But, everything has to be balanced.
Yeah, good point made. Nico.
Yes, I love AI and technology, not just because I'm an engineer, but also I think like from the efficiency perspective, again, I go back to like extension of your team. AI, again, is not going to substitute all of us. It's just going to be an extension of our team. So some roles may change, like copywriting with ChatGPT is now much faster, better. There's also concept art, right? A lot of those ideas that could be accelerated and shown to us much faster. So I see it as just another tool again in our toolbox. And at the end of the day, like the thing that AI is still lacking, maybe it changes in the future, is creativity. And so for that, we still need that human touch. And, like Stephanie said, it's like we still need a human to be there and kind of like manage the conversation and add the emotional parts that the AI is lacking, at least to the extent that we can. And I think some other points that was touched earlier are so important. Like we talked about trust. So, like under promising and over delivering, like that needs to be practiced more, and just listening to the customer. So again, you can leverage any tools that exist to do that. You don't have to have necessarily community managers that are 24/7 on Discord and just like analyzing word by word. You can use AI. I'm part of this amazing community called Nouns, and they're building a brand completely Web3, completely decentralized. And, we talked about a lot like traditional brands coming to Web3, but I think Web3 projects or businesses can be a strong brand and even get stronger than traditional brands with being open to these technologies, not worrying about what the stakeholders would say every moment, so they can just take more risks and listen to the consumers and make them a part of the narrative, and that changes everything. And they are great use cases, great examples of like what real empowerment is. And Carlos, you mentioned about like we have to utilize the community and bring them into the narrative, but the question is always like, what's the incentive that we can give them? So a lot of times we see in this crypto world that it was money, but now that the money is not there as much, a lot of those folks are gone. So what's the remaining incentive? I think recognition could be one, just amplifying the talents and expertise that every person can bring to your brand, to your community. So again, an example of Nouns brand, like they're actually amplifying every talent. Not only they give them funding, but also they give them support to build their expertise, their talent, leverage their ecosystem. That's what usually is missing from the traditional brands. They just want to take, not so much give.
Yeah.
Great insights. And I want to share a piece of information with all of you. So as some of you might know, I run a community called Meta Shapers, and we've been around for slightly over a year. One of my colleagues there is a guy called Jamie Brett, who runs Meta Hub out of London. Amazing guy in terms of programming. So we are now going to be announcing a webinar totally powered by ChatGPT. So there are going to be 4 avatars, and they will be powered by ChatGPT. It will be an organic conversation with no human interaction. The only human in the room will be myself moderating and making sure these ChatGPT avatars don't get out of hand. So we've tested it out.
We just got fired. That's what you're telling us, here. So basically, no, which is a great news because I could be sleeping, right now.
So guys, stay tuned for that announcement. Trust me, it works. It's almost like we could have Stephanie's avatar and the text to voice works amazingly well. It's totally powered by ChatGPT. It's an organic conversation. Nothing is scripted. It's just that we don't know where it will take us, right? So we need a moderator in the room. So stay tuned for that announcement. Carlos, I want to come to you. I still want to hear from you in your podcast that you run very successfully. What are the topics of conversation? What is getting traction these days?
You mean inside my community or
inside your
in
community?
my podcast?
What are people talking about? What are the top 3 hashtags, if I may ask you?
Oh, right now, artificial intelligence is definitely number 1 because I, by the way, made an episode about ChatGPT at the very beginning, and that sparked a lot of conversation, obviously. So artificial intelligence is number 1. I would say that Web3 is still very high. There is a lot of questions around, what decentralization means, and kind of the same kind of conversation we're having here. Number 3 is metaverse, for sure. There is a lot of expectation, here, with Apple, releasing a product, very soon, with, we don't know if it would be glasses or whatever, but I think that only Apple can now commoditize, this, the use of the metaverse that is missing some sort of engagement, right now. So I'm a very good friend of Sébastien Borget from the Sandbox, and I'm always telling him, this is great, what you're doing, but every time I'm connecting, to the Sandbox, I feel very alone. There is nobody out there, and he doesn't like that, when I say that to him. But so basically, these are the 3 topics, right now that I think are pretty hot. Now the conversation inside my community has nothing to do with all that. It's really about them, trying to connect to each other. Yes, of course, we're talking about these topics, but there is crazy conversation inside my community that, by the way, I'm not part of. I'm just, the guy. I think it's what is very interesting also is as a creator, I think that my role is like organizing a party. So basically, I'm inviting people, and they're here, and I think that some of them don't even know who organized the party. And it doesn't really matter. I'm not there, inside my community, like the person that has to engage a conversation, that has to be at the center, et cetera, et cetera. There is, I was checking, while we were talking, sorry about that, but we have a Telegram group, and there were, 80 conversation going on, as we were talking, and they don't care if I'm here or not, so I don't know exactly what they are talking about, right now. And it doesn't really matter. My job is to bring the right people, together. That's really my job.
Right. Great, Carlos.
Not to control the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carlos, there's a question.
What brands, will hate, by the way. That's why I'm saying that, because brands, want to control the conversation. They want to know what is, where I don't want to know what they are talking about. I don't really care, about that. It's not my.
I just want to add something quickly to that, if may. So I think it's important, like what you said, there's a difference between you being a traditional brand or new, but also I think you have established a culture. And that's why people are in your community versus someone else's. So the purpose, the values that you established,
Exactly.
that framework that they're resonating with is still going to be there. You may not be there every moment, but you are there in the spirit, and you are there kind of like they are kind of looking up to you and the values you established. I think that power, that impact that the founder of a community has and the culture you build is not going anywhere.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. I have a pop quiz for our panelists and for our audience. So audience members, may I request you to just write one brand that comes to your mind that you think has got community building right. So feel free, it can be in any industry. And I'm going to go around the room, and starting with Jennifer, who do you think has got it right in terms of community building in Web3?
Oh, and Web3.
Which brand comes to mind?
Well, it's going to be Nike.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
Stephanie.
If Nike is taken, I will say Starbucks.
All right. Nico.
Well, I don't think, again, the traditional brand has done it perfectly. Like Nike and all of them, they were just acquiring something that existed, that artifact. So I think my example was Nouns that I'm part of. I truly believe they are a modern Disney and the future of branding.
All right, Gordon.
Um,
Lego?
I'm going to stick with Lego because I'm a great fan of that community anyway, and what they're doing now and where they're going.
Right, Carlos.
Yeah, I love Lego also as well, but I don't see them, doing anything on the Web3. I mean, I'm still, buying their product, and I don't feel like I own anything, from them. So I don't feel I'm a stakeholder, with Lego. But I still, I love their product, and I would continue to buy them. I agree with what Nico said. I haven't seen any traditional brand, which is for me a fantastic news, because it means that they are totally desperate, and that it opens an opportunity for new brands, to take over, which is a great news, because Lego has been around, for many years, now it's time maybe to replace, Lego with something new, which I think it's always great, to see new. I see someone saying Adidas, maybe I prefer, what Adidas is doing than Nike. I think that Adidas is, yes, especially on the sandbox, trying to do something by themselves, not just by acquiring, other startups. But I agree with Nico. I think that I really love, a brand, on the Web3 name, Friends with Benefits, that is a community that is doing very interesting stuff. And Bored Ape, I mean, that's an amazing community, building an amazing brand, with incredible, assets that can become maybe the next Disney. And that I really like. I'm not an owner of a Bored Ape, but yeah, there are brands, in the Web3. You can talk about the CryptoPunks, and all these guys. Nouns is a very, very interesting DAO for sure, that I really love also as well. So I will recommend you to, yes, make your research and try to find, new brands. And that's okay if the old brands are not part of this equation. I think it's fine, I mean, let these people die.
Yeah, also, Carlos, just, based on what you said, look at that Tiffany example, right? They didn't have their own community, so they leveraged CryptoPunks and still made good money, right? They monetized in quick time with that pendant that they came out. So it's not necessary that brands, have their own community. They can leverage a community that is highly engaged and then monetize through collaboration. So Web3 is about collaboration, not competition. So brands need to, again, put their thinking caps on. Now we are near closing time. 6 minutes for us to close, 1 minute for each one of you for your closing comments. Let's start with Gordon.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it. I mean, what's been really fascinating listening to everybody here now, I think those that are really driving the Web3 story are those that are going to grow market share as brands, because we love innovation. I still think there's a lot of education out there, so that those that are seen as educational, I mean, we share a metaverse company as board directors anyway, so I've been banging on about that is education is the new sell, really, and using some of these amazing case studies that the guys have been talking about already. When you've got Nike driving it, Adidas will want to do it. So when you start to have industry leaders pioneering in this sector, before long their competitors will want to follow suit. Obviously, I'm going to support the influencer community as well. I think it's got great growth potential, with TikTok and live streaming in particular, going through the roof, and more video content generally. I mean, 80% of global internet traffic is now video driven, so we're getting used to this environment. So yeah, it's an exciting space to be in.
Thanks, Gordon. Jennifer, closing comments?
So I think Web3 is an and, not an or. And I suppose that's building on Gordon's comments. I think there has been a mindset where, the legacy businesses, shouldn't or don't have the right values. And I think what we have to do is use it as a catalyst to shift values holistically. So it's okay to acquire, it's okay to partner, It's okay to build organically. I don't think it matters. I think as long as the value system changes and people get equity or a value exchange, that means that there's longevity for a business, longevity for consumer relationships. That's really what it's about, right? So I'm trying to focus on that macro. I suppose the other thing to say is 2023 is a year of niches. So do we need scale, or do we need niche, or is it a collection of niches? I don't think we know, but I think the direction of travel is definitely that. So it'd be interesting to see that.
Yes, and you made an interesting point. Web3 is not so much about technology, it's about the mindset. Stephanie, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I totally agree with Gordon. Education is absolutely key and should not be seen as a cost, but as an asset. Experimentation is absolutely critical because the pace is going so fast compared to Web 2 that, you know, I always say to CEO, you had more than 15 years to, you know, to do your digital transformation. You will have at maximum 5 years, you know, to accelerate the Web3 transformation to become a thriving and sustainable organization. And I think it's all about getting rid of egos, entering into vulnerability and humility. I think it's something which is very important because no one knows where we will be in 2 years' time, considering the evolution of so many technologies, Web3, blockchain, AI. So it's all about, you know, as you say, no one is expert and we all are big learners. And break silos, stop, you know, to seeing things in a box. Technology will impact every single business unit of the organization, everyone from end consumers to employees to partners. And it's not only what's going on in, let's say, our countries, but it's also how do we make sure that our partners at the other side of the world can also, you know, benefit from these technologies, because we can't live with, I mean, on a planet with two worlds going on. It will create a lot of, a lot of consequences.
And just to add to what you were saying, Stephanie, brand managers need to realize that it's okay to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
I talked to a lot of, you know, CEOs, founders of businesses. They are scared to fail. They say, Sharad, if I do what you're telling me and I don't succeed, what happens to my job? Right? So 100%. It's okay to fail, look at the learnings, and I tell them it's better to be a leader than a follower. Nico, your takeaways, please.
Sure, I agree, but I also think we shouldn't wait for those big brands to take those risks. I think every one of us that are here are innovators, and we should keep building and making the great examples. So when we ask around the table, then it wouldn't be silent. So hopefully we can be great examples for them. But from the brand perspectives, I think is like, the resource and the talent is a challenge, and they can do collaboration and co-creation, but staying authentic and having your culture stay the same or stronger, that's another thing that brands need to figure out. And I don't think any person can have an answer. It's a process. Yes.
And Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, a lot of very interesting stuff. So I don't know what to add. I think it's, we talk a lot about the trust, you know, that is important. I personally don't trust, you know, the brand, you know, to do the right stuff in the Web3 space, because I don't think that they have the right set of value and culture, you know, to do it correctly, not now. And it would take time. Like Jennifer said, you know, it's not going to happen. There will be a Web 2.5, where basically it's going to be a transition in between what they've been doing in the Web 2, that is, by the way, very different than what they were doing, you know, in Web 1. And it took them very long time, you know, to get to Web 2. And now we are asking them to change again, you know, their set of values to get into this Web 3. What I don't want brands, you know, to come, you know, to Web 3. Into Web 3 with their set of value of Web 2, because they otherwise, you know, they're gonna waste everything, you know. So I think that they're not ready yet. It's gonna take them time. Maybe a lot of people in will make a lot of money trying to explain to them, what is Web3. I think that Nico and me, because we are doing stuff in the Web3, we're not going to make money, okay? Because we are the innovators, we are showing the way. There will be other people, and maybe it's not us, doing money, with these brands, trying to educate these brands to go into this Web3 world, with a new set of value and culture. Now, at the same time, there is also in Web3, talking about trust, people who apparently got, the culture, at least the technology, but that you cannot trust because they were, very bad people. It's always the same. I come from the Web 1. It happened exactly the same at the beginning of the internet. The first people that was trying to take advantage of the internet were very bad people. So we have exactly the same problem, right now. So yes, we have a problem of trust. Yes, as a consumers, because brands don't understand, this space. We trust, brands, but the problem is that they don't get, the Web3, and a lot of individuals, in the Web3 space are not trustable. So it's gonna take time, before, everything, gets clearer, that the real player, that the tourists, that the scammers, goes out, and then something very beautiful and very powerful is going to emerge, for sure, but it's not going to be next week. It's not going to be in 1 year. It's maybe going to take, 2, 3, or 4 years, to get there.
Great. I close on that optimistic note from Carlos. We are all in it together, and we are all going to succeed together, and we'll all get rich together also. Carlos, to your point. Okay, so for our audience, thank you for investing your 60 minutes with us. You will get a recording and a podcast tomorrow, same time at onlywebinars.com. Do share it with your friends, family, and community members for wider coverage. I want to thank my friends, my panelists, for an engaging conversation. We had loads of fun, and I'm sure there were a lot of takeaways for our audience. And on a housekeeping note, our next 2 webinars are already scheduled. We are going to be discussing Web3 investment trends on 23rd February. We have 5 VCs on our panel from 4 different continents. So we'll figure out where the money is and where it's getting invested. And our next webinar after that is how to organize successful Web3 IRL events. And that's on 28 March. And again, we have 5 panelists who are organizing the 5 biggest Web3 events in 5 continents on this planet. So you have to register and stay tuned for these conversations. And finally, thank you, audience, and thank you, panelists. Love you all, and see you on the other side.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Nice to
Thank
meet
you,
everyone.
Sharad.
Bye. Bye,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you
Thanks,
so
Sarah,
much.
as usual.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye.